Well, Nick, so good to finally meet you. I'm Stu. And and I see that you're muted right now, but oh, there he is.
That's
Awesome.
better.
Awesome. Now, these are some of the kids that are in the Penguin Corps. This is the group that meets on Thursdays. We have another group that meets on Tuesdays. And this, guys, this is Nick. And Nick, how do you pronounce your last name?
Oh, in French, it's Stoof.
Stoof. Okay.
Probably, I think you've got some kind of prepared food in the US that is like stoofers.
Oh, yes.
It's the same, but without the ers at the end.
Okay, Stoof. All right, that's good to know. All right, I'd like to take a second to introduce you to the kids in the room over on this side. Front row, we've got Jaden and Gavish. Second row there, we have Daniel, Max, and Ezra. Third row, we've got Jeffrey, Youssef, and Lev. Last row over there is Vincent. All right, now over on this side, let's see, from the back, there's Michael Martin, who is one of our founders. I've got two of our founders here tonight. And ladies, let's see, Remy and your name? Tegan. Why can't I remember that? I don't hang it up around that fifth grade. And you're new with us now. What's that? Sirhan. All right. Saran. Okay, then we have Harry and we have Atosh. And then over here, if I'll get out of the way, here we have Rania and Sophie. Sophie is another one of our founders. Sophie and Michael in the back. They are a few of the kids that actually helped to found the Penguin Corps back when they were fifth graders, and they're eighth graders now about to graduate. So that's what's going on with us. And to start things off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So I am a French guy. So it's currently 11 p.m. here, which might be why I'm a little bit tired. I am now a YouTuber. So I work full time on making videos about Linux and open source software on YouTube. And before that, I used to be a project manager, product owner, and chief product officer, which basically are the same job. It's taking care of how a project is run. You try to write specifications, you try to analyze how users will use the product or the website or the mobile application or whatever you're working on. And you try to translate all of that into interesting and detailed specifications that developers can then code. And then you interact with what the developers have coded and you check that everything is okay, that everything works as it's supposed to, that it's not too buggy. And if they can't code exactly what you decided you wanted, then you work with them to find a solution. So you're basically the intermediary between the developers and management or the users. So I did that for about 12 years in Paris, and then in the city where I live now, which is unfortunately called Brest. I'm sorry about this one, but that's about it. And I started YouTube full time about a year ago now. I've been running my YouTube channel for 5 years in total, but I only went full time. I think it was in May 2022.
Okay. Yeah, because I've been watching your YouTube channel now for a few years, but I didn't know that you were at the point where you could go full time with it. So that's very.
I could have gone full time earlier, but I felt it was more secure to wait until everything was, well, more built up, that the community was bigger.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. All right. Now the kids have some questions. I've been having them jot them down just so they don't forget their questions. But if we could have some of the kids come up just one at a time. Lev, we'll start with you. Okay, come on up here. And
you might have already answered this question, but est-ce que tu fais coding avec Linux?
Could you repeat, please? My headphones didn't work quite well.
Oh, I'll just say this question in French. Est-ce que tu fais coding avec Linux?
Can you code with Linux?
Yeah,
of course. Yes, it's probably one of the most used operating systems for coding, especially if you're a web developer, because Linux is pretty much the only place where you can get full performance containers like Docker, for example. It's very good at virtualization and virtualizing other systems. So a lot of web developers code on Linux exclusively because at the same time, most of the servers will also run Linux. And so having the same environment between where you're coding and where you're deploying your code is a huge help. For stuff like mobile applications on Android, it's perfect. Using Linux works really well as well. For iOS applications, it's generally way easier to use a Mac because Apple doesn't really provide their coding tools to other operating systems. But for web development, Linux is probably one of the best choices.
Oh, very cool. And is that something that you do yourself? Do you still do coding or?
I never did.
Oh, okay.
I think the closest I ever were to coding anything was on my Casio calculator 20 years back when I was in high school. I can read code. I can read C. I can read JavaScript. I can read CSS, HTML, but I can understand it, PHP as well, but I can't write it myself.
Well, you several up on us though. All right. All right. Thank you. Thanks, Lev. Okay. Who would like to go next? Rania, please. Okay, Ronnie is one of our longtime members too, and somebody who's going to be on our speaking team when we speak at Open Source North in St. Paul at the end of the month.
Very nice.
Okay, so my question is more YouTube related, but how many subs do you need to go on YouTube full time? Or how much money would you need to go on YouTube full time? Like, would you have to pay for do you have how much money would you need to pay for the rent, maybe of your house, like the mortgage and like the electricity, the water, the everything? Or would you just need enough to just to pay the mortgage and then everything else could be just paid by a side job or something like that?
So that will obviously depend on where you live and how much you need personally. What's your lifestyle? Are you a big spender, somebody who's pretty cheap? It all depends. The number of subscribers doesn't really matter. It's more the number of views because YouTube pays you per 1,000 views. You generally get, well, on my channel, I get 2.5 euros. So it would be like $2.2 or something per 1,000 views. So you have to make a lot of views to make ends meet. In France, rent or mortgages are probably lower than in most of the US. For me personally, to be able to do YouTube full-time, I would at least have to earn about 1,700 euros per month, which means about 1 million views per month once you take into account all the taxes that you have to pay, because YouTube is a source of revenue. So you have to create a company to declare that revenue. And so you have to pay taxes on it, at least in France. Pretty sure that's the same thing in the US as well.
Oh, yeah, that would be the same.
I'm sure the IRS would not be too happy with undeclared revenue. So it all depends on where you live, how much rent is. I'm fortunate enough to live in a city in France, which is not really expensive. It's not a huge city. It's like 250,000 people living there. So it's not big by any means, but rent is pretty cheap for that size of city in France. And so my mortgage is also pretty cheap. So I don't need a lot, but if you were living in, I don't know, Los Angeles, for example, you would probably need something like $8,000 per month. So it would be a lot of views and a lot of subscribers. So it all depends.
The YouTuber, Rania.
No, I just wanted to know how much it costed.
Fair enough. Okay. All right. Thanks a lot. Let's see here. Can we go with Yusuf, then Jaden, then Harry? Okay. So Yusuf. Oh, I'm sorry, Michael too. We'll have to make sure we get Michael in. Okay, this is Yusuf. He's also going to be joining us on the speaking team on
Awesome.
All right. So Yusuf, your question?
So my question is, do you do hardware and build gaming computers and stuff like that?
I haven't done that in a while. I generally tend to buy pre-builds nowadays. I buy pre-builds without certain components, like for example, graphics cards, because in general, when you buy pre-built computers, the graphics card costs a lot more in the pre-build than what you would buy yourself, either on the second-hand market or just by looking around in various shops. But I do tend to buy at least an assembled PC in a case where I just have to slot in the components. I know how to do it, but I never really found that super fun to do. At some point, I will do it again because I think it's an interesting skill and things have evolved a lot in that space in terms of cable management. I never built a PC with water cooling, for example, which I would love to do as well. But generally, I don't have that much free time nowadays. And so I like a plug and play experience as much as possible.
Fair enough.
Because I see like behind you, there's a graphics card, I'm pretty sure.
And that's exactly for what I'm planning to build next, which I'll make a video about as well. I'm going to build a gaming PC, which is also going to be a Steam console. So I will install the same operating system as on the Steam Deck, if you know about the Steam Deck.
Oh, yes.
I'm going to install the same operating system, so SteamOS, on that console, and I'm going to plug it into my TV, use a controller, and use it as basically an equivalent to my PS5, but a little bit more powerful and with all my Steam library in it. But it's a pre-built, and I just bought the graphics card separately to slot it in.
Yeah, I know a few of the kids here got to try the Steam Deck when we were at this conference last year because one of the vendors contributes code to Wine.
Nice.
Code Weavers. They do that over Linux. And since they had a booth there, they had a bunch of Steam Decks and the kids got to try them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I touched it, but I didn't know which game to start with. So I thought, okay, you kids just play. So, okay, thanks, you, Seth. Jaden, and then Harry, then Michael, and then, yep. All right.
My question is, what inspired you to make your YouTube channel?
It was pretty stupid. I moved back from Paris, where I lived for about 10 years, and I moved back to the city where I studied, where I went to university, and I had to basically sell everything I owned at the time. I won't go into the specifics, but yeah. And so I had basically nothing in my flat. I was super bored and I wanted to learn something. So I just bought the cheapest laptop I could find that had a dedicated GPU. And I decided to learn how to edit videos. And since I didn't have any money to buy a computer with Windows on it, and I knew a bit about Linux, I installed Linux on it, and I decided to try to make videos about Linux. And I wanted to have feedback on it, so I published it on YouTube. And since people seemed to enjoy it, I kept making it. It was an accident, basically. I never planned to create a YouTube channel. It just happened.
That's cool. That's cool. All right, thanks, Jaden. The whole Linux clubs in Minnesota thing was literally an accident for me and for us, really. I was working at my last school, and we had started a one-to-one program, and the kids kept breaking their laptops, so I couldn't actually integrate tech into my classes because kids didn't have laptops because they broke them. A local nonprofit gave me a hardware grant, and all those computers came with Linux. And I was already using Linux at the time, so I thought it was pretty cool. But then I had this group of kids that would come and like hang out in my room after school, and they were waiting for the after school club or program to start. And it's like, okay, you guys won't leave my room until 4:30. Contractually, I can't leave my room until 4:30 because that's when my day ends. So if I'm stuck with you, then you guys are going to learn how these computers work. And from there, Minnesota got its first Linux club. And then when
awesome.
But all my fault? Yeah. and then from there, at this school, I came in and we started this, and it exploded in every direction. So, all right, let's see here. I believe Harry was next. Guys, please.
My question is probably going to be a tiny bit close to home for you. How does the cheese taste there?
Well, for me, it tastes amazing, but for a lot of people, it would taste pretty gross. So basically, let's say American cheese is basically cheddar, like pretty soft, mild cheddar. In France, we wouldn't call that cheese because the cheese we eat is generally very old, very ripe, and it can be pretty gross for a lot of people.
Okay, so pretty strong taste in that.
Yeah, it's very, very strong. Well, not all of them. So some are more mild, but I think for most Americans, it would taste pretty strong. Yeah. At least my uncle is American. He lives in Texas with my aunt, and he never got used to it.
Fair enough.
only like cheese.
Yeah.
Well, if you do, you should probably try and pay us a visit. We have some really good stuff here. So some stuff that isn't even allowed to be sold in the US, like camembert, which is, I think, too alive and full of bacteria to be sold in the United States. It's considered a health hazard. In France, it's not. So you would probably enjoy yourself. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, Harry, thanks. Michael, I believe you were next. Again, Michael was one of our founders. When he was a small, short fifth grader, he helped start the club.
So my question's a bit random, but what's your favorite country other than France?
That's a hard one. The countries I visited, I went to Ireland, I went to the United Kingdom, to Italy, to Portugal, to Spain. I went to Germany. I went to the Caribbean, but French islands mostly. I'd say probably in Europe, my favorite country would be Portugal, because the climate is awesome, the landscape is wonderful, the temperatures are exactly in the range I like them, and the people are just incredibly warm and super friendly. I never got a chance to go to the United States. I plan to at some point to visit my uncle in Texas, but I never got to go there. I'd say Portugal probably. From everywhere I went, probably Portugal would be the best. Well, my favorite at least.
Very cool. Okay.
You should come give the Penguin Court a visit.
Hey, I would love to.
Welcome to come to Minnesota. All right. Thank you. Let's see here. And Daniel, you had a question?
Yeah.
Can you-
So what coding language do you use?
Well, I don't code personally. I used to do a little bit of BASIC, which is like old and nobody does that anymore. But sorry.
I haven't done it in decades, but
Yeah, well, it's not that much used anymore. But I can read and understand PHP, JavaScript, CSS, HTML, basically any web-related languages, various JavaScript frameworks like React.js and stuff like that. I can read it, understand it perfectly, but I wouldn't be able to code a complete website from scratch with it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Let's see here. Please, Willow.
Me and Lily have the same question.
Well, maybe the two of you can come up. I set up a few rules, but that's cool. All right. Another couple of our eighth graders. Willow joined us last year, and her friend Lily joined us this year.
Have you ever been to the Eiffel Tower? And if so, how many times?
Yes, I lived 5 minutes from the Eiffel Tower when I was in Paris. So I went, basically, I passed by it every single day to go to work. I saw it by the windows of the subway, which is actually overground in Paris in some places. So when you cross a bridge, you actually have a super nice view of the Eiffel Tower. That was the line I used every day. And I basically went there every weekend when it was nice and sunny. You've got like long places full of grass, long lawns in front of the Eiffel Tower with very walkable areas and trees. And so you can sit in the grass right at the feet of the Eiffel Tower and like have breakfast, eat lunch, whatever you want, just read a book. So I used to do that a lot, yeah. And I only went up the Eiffel Tower, I think 2 times. Once using the elevators, which was easy, and one using the stairs, which was really hard because there are a lot of them and they're super steep. And I had dinner at the top as well in the restaurant, which was amazing at night with a wonderful view of Paris.
I know there was a restaurant up there. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's insane. It's beautiful.
Follow-up question.
Do you eat a lot of baguettes?
Yeah, it's it's basically like the most normal thing here. It's if you want to eat some cheese, if you want to eat some ham, you always put it in a baguette. Yeah.
All right. Thank you both. Thank you both. We had a few other hands. Let's see. I'd like to go with Ezra. We haven't heard from Ezra yet. Ezra is our club secretary this year. One of our secretaries this year. So he's our Thursday secretary.
So my question. Yeah, I'll say it from the top of my head. What made you want to be like do it?
I started using it in 2006. So I was 18, I think, at the time. And I just wanted a Mac at the time. I just liked how it looked, but I did not have the money. So I bought a really old refurbished laptop because that was all I could afford. And I tried to turn Windows XP at the time into something that looked like Mac OS. And it was impossible. I just corrupted my whole system. And so I kept looking around and I found out something called Ubuntu, which I didn't know what it was at the time, but I saw that a lot of people were able to customize it completely to look like a Mac. So I tried it. And then I just stuck to its default orange and brown interface, which I really found striking at the time. And that's how I learned how to use Linux. I had plenty of problems at the time. Wi-Fi never worked. Ethernet didn't work. It was slow. It was terrible. But I learned how to fix all those things. And I stuck with it, I think, until 2013. At that point, I basically stopped using a computer for my own needs. I just didn't need one. And I went back into it when I started the channel in 2018.
All right. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Lev, you had a follow-up question? And was there anybody else over here who wanted to ask a question? Atosh, did you want to? Okay, so Lev, and then maybe Atosh. Okay, come on up.
What is your favorite food?
My favorite food? As in French food or any type of food?
French food.
French food, my favorite French food. I think it would be what we call poule au pot here, which is, it would translate to chicken in a pot. It's basically a roasted chicken that you cook with a lot of potatoes, some white beans as well, a little bit of tomato, and a little bit of white wine as well to soak in the chicken. And it's a lot of butter as well, because a lot of French foods have tons of butter everywhere. So it's a pretty heavy food, but it's super tasty.
Sounds great.
Sound pretty tasty. I mean, I guess I'll ask my dad if he can make me some sometime, or like if I can make the food. Is there a recipe?
Yeah, it's
On Google somewhere? Or
excuse me.
He wants to know where to find the recipe.
Oh, well, I'm pretty sure online you can find one. It's called poule, P-O-U-L-E. It's the French word for a chicken. O-A-U and pot, P-O-T. Poule au pot.
All right, yeah, just Google that, see what you come up with.
I'm pretty sure there are tons of really good recipes for that.
Yeah, okay. Atosh, please. Okay. And Atosh here, I've known him since he was a fifth grader. He just joined the club here for spring session. And so what's your question?
So this is also kind of YouTube related. How many subscribers do you have, and what do you talk about in your channel?
So I currently have about 260,000 subscribers, and I talk about everything that is related to Linux on the desktop, like using it as a desktop operating system, no server related stuff, and open source in general. So every new development in terms of, I don't know, AI in open source, or just great open source applications that you can use to replace proprietary programs like the Adobe software suite or stuff like that. And so I make 3 videos per week. The first 2 generally on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. The Saturday one is always a Linux and open source news video where I just have a news recap of everything that happened during the week. And the other 2 are pretty random. It can be about a specific Linux distribution. It can be about a specific piece of software, about an opinion I have about Linux, or something that doesn't work in our community, or something that works really well. Maybe the limitations of Linux or the good things about Linux. It's pretty varied, but I try to stick to this topic. Sometimes I also talk about privacy related stuff, like how to cut out let's say the big tech services mostly. So Google, Microsoft, Those can be really nice, really well integrated, but they also siphon a lot of your personal data. And I try to educate people about, are you okay with this? Do you know about this? It's a compromise everyone has to make. Some people are okay with it, but if you're not, here are some solutions that you can use.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a question. At the moment, and I saw the video that you did not too long ago about where you were sort of ranking all of the different popular distros or ranking the different desktop environments. And those are pretty cool, by the way. What is your favorite distro to use as a daily driver? And what desktop environment do you like the best?
So for now, I landed on Fedora. And I use GNOME or GNOME, depends on how you want to pronounce it. I use it on my laptop because I think it's the best desktop environment for laptops. You've got really great support for touchpad gestures. You can swipe from one desktop to another, swipe up to bring out the overview or the applications grid. It's really well suited for laptops. On my desktop, I'm still on Fedora 37 with GNOME as well, but I'm planning to move it to something KDE based because I found that without a touchpad, KDE tends to be more efficient than GNOME. But yeah, that's what I use currently. And I just haven't landed on the distribution I want to use KDE on because Fedora is more GNOME centric. They do offer a variant with KDE, but it's not KDE specific.
Fair enough. Okay, cool. Thanks. Daniel, you have an additional question?
Yeah.
Please stand up.
So I see you have a PlayStation 5 box in the back. How hard was that to get? Because I still haven't got one.
I had to wait, I think, 2 years from the moment I wanted one to the moment I could actually find one. And the only one I could find was a bundle with a God of War Ragnarok and Horizon Forbidden West. So I couldn't just buy the console. I would have bought the 2 games anyways, but I had to buy the whole bundle for, I think, something like 700 euros, which is quite expensive, I think. But yeah, it was tough. I had the money, I wanted one, but I could not find one anywhere. I had to wait, and I think I bought it off Amazon.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other additional questions? Okay. All right. So Nick, I think that now might be a good opportunity to wrap this up. I do want to thank you again very much for taking the time to meet with us
No
and
problem.
staying up past what might be your bedtime. I'm not sure what your habits. And guys, just so you know, it is almost 11:45 p.m. his time over in France. So again, that 7-hour time difference. So really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us today, and be looking for this on our YouTube channel, if that's all right.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again, and you have a great day.
Thank you all.
Bye, Nick.
Okay,
Bye.
and say thank you.